Hello, YouTube. This is Sean Mary along with my friend Devon here. We both actually post stuff on YouTube. Admittedly, I don't post things on YouTube super often, but I've done videos and streams before to be sure. My friend Devon here has his own channel. He tends to do glow sticking. Isn't that right?
You just dance with glow sticks, make glow in the dark art.
Yeah, you've been doing that for a long time.
In
It's
6 months,
something
it'll be 20 years.
It's a long
Actually.
time. It's a
No,
long
seriously, man.
Yeah, it's a long time for sure. I definitely enjoy talking about movies, TV shows. That's the kind of thing I tend to talk about whenever I do post on YouTube. Me and my friend here did a stream together like 2 months ago. We talked about Jurassic Park, Star Wars. Unfortunately, the quality isn't as good in that case, so hopefully it'll be better in this case.
Right.
We're going to be talking today about all the different Disney live action remakes. Though, to be fair, just saying Disney live action remakes is kind of misleading because not all of them are remakes. You know what I mean?
Right.
Some of them are more like reimaginings or a prequel story.
Oh, yeah.
If you think about Christopher Robin, for example, rather than that being a direct remake of a single Winnie the Pooh film, it's more like a reimagining of Winnie the Pooh where you see Christopher Robin grow up.
Yeah.
It's not really a direct remake of the Winnie the Pooh movie from 1977 or the one from 2011 or any of the other Winnie the Pooh films.
There's actually two that I remember. One was Winnie the Pooh, the other one was The Search for Christopher Robin.
Yeah, I definitely remember Search for Christopher Robin for sure. I remember seeing that one as a kid. Now we're going to be going over all the different remakes, and that does include How to Train Your Dragon. Yes, that one is not from Disney. It is from a separate studio, DreamWorks, on a more broad level, Universal. But at the end of the day, it is still taking an animated movie and turning it into a live action movie. So it's the same thing, even though a different studio made How to Train Your Dragon besides Disney.
Right.
First of all, we're going to talk about Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book from 1994, which is actually the first of these Disney live-action movies based on an animated movie. I think you'd agree, man, when you watch Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book, it definitely feels different compared to Disney live-action remakes that you get now. Right?
Yeah.
The big reason for that is because Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book is not a big budget epic spectacle like you get nowadays. Rather, it's a more simple, good old fashioned adventure movie.
Yeah.
It feels like a mixture of Jungle Book and Tarzan, and a little bit of Aladdin as well.
Yeah.
And also, it's very important to note that Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book is not a direct remake of the Disney animated Jungle Book movie from 1967. Rather, it's a different version of Jungle Book. For example, one of the big differences is that in other versions of the story, Mowgli stays a child throughout the runtime. Right. In the case of Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book, he's not a child throughout the runtime. He starts off as a child, but then you see him become an adult. And also, a big part of this version of Jungle Book is Mowgli finding this human village, human settlement, and then trying to fit in with humans. He's used to being in the jungle, used to interacting with animals, but then he meets this lady. We see her basically try to show him how to be civilized, how to actually interact with other humans.
Yeah.
Then we see whether or not he's capable of actually being a human as well as an animal. And in the end, Mowgli actually finds a balance between his human side and his jungle side.
Yeah.
Also, part of the movie is about trying to find treasure. There's actually like this cave.
And like Ka, the snake protects the treasure.
Yeah, you have this cave of treasures. And because of that, it feels kind of like Aladdin. Because in Aladdin, you have the Cave of Wonders.
Right.
Something similar is in this version of the Jungle Book.
Yeah.
And also, because we see Mowgli become an adult, that makes it feel kind of like Tarzan.
Right.
And so this is a movie that can feel quaint if you watch it now, because it's pretty different compared to more modern Disney live-action remakes. But I would say this is definitely one of the good ones. Then after that, you had 101 Dalmatians, 1996, with
Yeah.
Glenn Close and Jeff Daniels.
Yeah.
I primarily know Jeff Daniels from Dumb and Dumber. He's really funny in that movie. Have you seen Dumb and Dumber?
I haven't actually, but I know Glenn Close. He played in Air Force One. And what else she played in? I can't remember what else she played in.
I know Air Force One. That is Harrison Ford in
Yeah,
it.
he's the
of course,
president.
a big name actor for
President,
sure.
Yeah.
Dumb and Dumber is definitely one of my favorite comedies, along with Elf and Mrs. Doubtfire.
That's Jim Carrey, right?
Jim Carrey.
Dumb and Dumber.
He's in Dumb and Dumber as well as Jeff
Okay.
Daniels.
All right.
And there's other people in there as well. I think it's really funny, though. Of course, it's important to note that humor is subjective, so people are going to have different perspectives on what is funny versus what isn't. So
yeah.
just because a movie's funny for one person doesn't automatically mean it'll be funny for another one.
Right.
I would still recommend Dumb and Dumber.
Yeah.
When it comes to 101 Dalmatians, 1996, I think this is one of the good Disney live-action remakes. Again, like Jungle Book 1994, this one can feel quaint if you watch it now, because it's not trying to be a big epic spectacle movie with a big budget. Rather, 101 Dalmatians 1996 takes the original movie and it has the same plot, but it gives you a different perspective. Because the original 101 Dalmatians, the animated movie from 1961, is like a stealthy heist movie with cute talking dogs.
Right.
By contrast, the 1996 version of 101 Dalmatians is like a 90s family comedy with a Home Alone style of humor in it, as that Home Alone slapstick humor in it. And in fact, it makes sense when
Who directed it again?
I'm trying to remember actually who directed 101 Dalmatians 1996. I'm not sure, to be honest. Well, it's important to note that the 1996 version of this story was actually written by John. Hey, Lorax, it's good to see you as well. It's nice to see you pop up in the chat. I'm really glad that you're here. My friend is actually looking up who directed 101 Dalmatians. There's multiple different people who directed the original film, yeah. But when it comes to the 1996 movie, when you get to the third act, it very much feels. Yeah, I remember for sure. When you get to the third act, actually, it feels like Home Alone with dogs,
Right.
which makes sense considering that John Hughes, who wrote Home Alone, was also involved in 1996 101 Dalmatians. So it makes sense, it has a flavor to it. Then you got 102 Dalmatians. It came out not that long after 101 Dalmatians 1996. The thing that's interesting about 102 Dalmatians, it's good to see you, Lego Gambit, for sure. 102 Dalmatians actually directed by Kevin Lima. He's the same guy who directed a Goofy movie, which has definitely garnered much more appreciation as time has passed. I don't know how well it was received at the time, but over time, people have grown more and more fond of the Goofy movie. Have you seen that one, man?
I have. I've seen an extremely Goofy movie and a Goofy movie. I like them both. They were both it kept my attention the whole time. It's been a while since I've seen them, but I remember they were great and I really liked them. And I would love to watch them again.
Yeah, I definitely think that they're really good, for sure. When it comes to 102 Dalmatians, this one actually is different, to be honest, because it's not a direct remake of the original 101 Dalmatians.
It's just like a sequel, right?
Instead, it's actually a sequel to a live-action remake, which is unique. You don't really see that anywhere else.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
I really don't think 102 Dalmatians works, to be honest.
Okay.
Because it feels like Kevin Lima and other people decided, let's focus in 100% on Cruella and abandon the supporting cast of the original 1996 movie. I don't think it works, honestly, go all in on Cruella like this. And on top of that, part of this movie is about Cruella being psychologically conditioned to like dogs. Did you know that, man? Yeah. Did you know that?
No,
before 102 Dalmatians.
I haven't seen 102 Dalmatians.
Yeah, it's about Cruella being psychologically conditioned to like dogs, which is literally a plot point taken straight out of Stanley Kubrick's A Clockwork Orange, which is not a family-friendly movie at all.
You know, it says 101 Dalmatians focuses on Cruella de Vil's plot to steal Dalmatian puppies for a fur coat, while 102 Dalmatians is a sequel where Cruella, after being cured of her obsession, relapses and tries to steal puppies again.
Yeah, I think the 1996 movie really works. In contrast, 102 Dalmatians, it's just like, what the heck are we doing here? If you've seen A Clockwork Orange before, that's an adult movie,
Yeah.
not family friendly.
No.
So, considering the 102 Dalmatians is a family friendly movie made more for kids, you're like, ooh, this feels like a pretty dark thing to include in this movie. And on top of that, what kid is going to get oh, Lorax, Lego Gambit, you think every live action remake is bad? I'm surprised to hear you say that, to be honest, because I don't think a lot of people would agree with that. I certainly don't. I think there's been some good movies. I think that, as I was just talking about, Rudyard Kipling's Jungle Book from 1994, as well as 101 Dalmatians 1996, are actually both really good. And I think there are other live action remakes that are good, like Jungle Book 2016, Cinderella 2015, the Aladdin remake for 2019. I would say that those are all good examples of how to do a live action remake right. And I think there are other ones that, of course, have been bad for sure, and not all of them have been good. I think that Disney has certainly put out too many of these movies, so it's understandable that people would be tired of these live action remakes at this point because there's been over 20 of them.
Right.
Some of them have really not been good.
Yeah.
So it just feels like, Disney, how long are you going to keep doing this for? How long are
Yeah.
you going to keep being creatively bankrupt? But I'd still definitely argue that some of these movies have worked. In fact, me and you both saw Lilo and Stitch.
Yeah, we just saw Lilo and Stitch a week ago.
Yeah, that was
2
good.
weeks
When
ago. That was really good. I recommend you see it, Lego Gambit.
Yeah, and so I think that these kind of movies can still work if you find Lilo and Stitch live action is trash, something like the animated. Okay, Lego Gambit, it is true that the new Lilo and Stitch movie does make some adjustments. It certainly is not exactly the same as the original Lilo and Stitch, but I gotta be honest, I thought the changes worked. I thought it made sense. For example, in the original 2002 Lilo and Stitch, you have these two aliens. Oh yeah, Lego Gambit. It's true that Ganto, that character, is not in the live action Lilo and Stitch movie, but I thought this new movie still really worked. I don't think that Ganto's absence made the movie considerably worse or anything like that. Also, think about this. In the original movie, you have Jumbo and Pleakley just throwing on some Earth clothes in order to pass as human.
Mm-hmm.
That works in animation because animation is inherently more disconnected from our reality. But honestly, if you try to do that in live action, I don't think that works at all because as soon as you see in live action these aliens just tossing on some Earth clothes to try to pass as human,
Right.
you'd immediately go, well, no one is that stupid. Everyone would immediately notice these are aliens. Like,
Right.
you can't have an alien just throwing on a dress in live action thinking, well, now I'm human. No, you're obviously an alien. And also, I get the ending of the new Lilo and Stitch movie is different than 2002 Lilo and Stitch, but gotta be honest, I thought this different ending actually worked. It made a lot of sense.
I thought it was fairly heartwarming.
In the original Lilo and Stitch, by the end, Nani chooses to stay with Lilo in order to take care of her.
Yeah.
I like how this new version of Lilo and Stitch actually fleshes out Nani's character, to be honest. It makes her more three-dimensional than she was in the original movie, because this new one actually addresses the fact that Nani doesn't really know what she's doing. She doesn't have a ton of experience of parenting. The actual biological parents are gone.
Right.
Nani has dreams of her own. She actually wants to study marine biology.
Yeah.
But at first, she's just trying to take care of Lilo, and she's not doing that good a job at it. Not because she doesn't care, but just because she doesn't have that much experience. And then by the end, not live action Nani
Lilo
leaves
gets
Lilo.
ditched.
Well, Lego Gambit, it's of course fine for people who have different opinions. There's nothing wrong with that at all. We don't have to agree. For me and my friend actually as well.
It's just
but-
our opinion. You're welcome to have your own.
both of us would say that this new ending actually worked. I didn't at all see it as Nani was ditching Lilo or didn't like her. No, I thought that yeah, it makes sense that Nani realizes, oh, I want to actually take care of Lilo while also pursuing my own dreams. I don't want to just stay with Lilo because there are other people in this community in this neighborhood that also care for Lilo that have more experience, frankly, with parenting than I do, that can do a better job of taking care of her on a day-to-day basis. I can go off to study marine biology and thus pursue my dream without forgetting about Lilo while still making it clear, yeah, of course we're sisters. I care about you. I love you. Nothing's going to change that.
Yeah.
But I don't want to stick around here because I want to pursue my dreams. And in the end, Lilo realizes, oh, that's what I want for my big sister.
Mhm.
I want her to have her own life while also still, of course, remembering me and still spending time with me. Lego Gambit actually going to ask here in the chat if you've seen some of these live action remakes that have been better received, have got more positive reviews. I think that we get to Alice in Wonderland from 2010, which is actually directed by Tim Burton. I don't think this one works. And a lot of people would agree with me. For one, it feels like Tim Burton completely missed the whimsical, fun nature of Wonderland. It also missed the fact that Lewis Carroll was all about absurdity, wordplay, literary nonsense, actually, more specifically. You get to this movie, it feels like, oh, we have a Tim Burton version of Wonderland
Right.
that doesn't have any of that wordplay absurdity. It also feels like suddenly we're trying to turn Alice into something she was never intended to be. We're trying to turn her into a typical blockbuster hero. Now all of a sudden Alice has a sword, she's fighting a dragon. You go, that's not what Alice in Wonderland was ever designed to be at all. It wasn't designed to be this kind of cliche blockbuster.
Right.
I haven't actually seen the 2010 Alice in Wonderland
Tim
movie. Tim Burton directed it. I haven't actually seen this version of Alice in Wonderland.
Different. It's very different than the original.
Yeah, I haven't seen this one, but I definitely know about 2010 Alice in Wonderland because I've watched I've watched videos.
Johnny Depp is the Mad Hatter, I think.
Yeah, that's very true.
I think so, anyway.
Yeah, Johnny Depp is the Mad Hatter. Yeah, I think one of the big problems actually with not just 2010 Alice in Wonderland, but also Alice Through the Looking Glass. It feels like Tim Burton, actually director James Bobbin, who did Alice Through the Looking Glass, trying to give answers to everything when this is supposed to be nonsense.
Right.
Wonderland is supposed to be this made up dream world.
Right.
And you get to Alice Through the Looking Glass, it's like we have to explain why the queens don't like each other.
Right.
We got to explain why the Mad Hatter is the way he is.
Yeah.
That's not what you
Isn't
want.
it all just a dream in the original 51 movie?
Yeah, exactly.
It was like
Alice
one giant dream. She's sleeping.
Loris, at least they're not making a Toy Story live action. That's the funny thing. People have been discussing more and more, I would say, how many of these movies are we going to get? I mean, considering that Pixar is under the Disney umbrella overall, it's like, well, they could do Toy Story live action if they wanted to. I mean, Disney's already remade so many of their own movies. Why not do a Pixar remake?
I don't think they should do that. I don't think they should make a live action Toy Story.
Yeah.
I can't see how it would be successful, but you know.
Yeah, I don't think they should start doing Pixar live action remakes.
Yeah.
Also, very interesting to see how many other studios are going to get in on this game. There's already DreamWorks done How to Train Your Dragon live action, which just came out recently.
Yeah.
So are we going to get more DreamWorks live action remakes? Is Illumination going to start doing their own live action remakes? Is Sony Pictures Animation going to start doing their own live action remakes? It'll be interesting to see if we keep doing these movies. I think that people will get more and more tired of them, especially if multiple studios get in on the game.
Right.
But however,
do you think what Disney's doing is similar to like the Marvel,
I think it's different than the MCU because in the MCU is based on comic books. It's all these movies that are set in one universe. Oh, Inside Out live action. Yeah, don't do that. That's too soon. I mean, could Inside Out work in live action? Sure, I think it could translate over, but it's just too soon because the original.
I don't think they should do that either.
The original Inside Out came out within the past 20 years.
Yeah.
The original Inside Out came out in, I don't remember exactly what year it came out, to be honest, but it's been the past 20 years. And then Inside Out 2 literally came out last year in 2024.
Yeah.
So I don't think you should be doing Inside Out live action. When it comes to Sorcerer's Apprentice in 2010, this is actually an interesting one, to be honest, because Sorcerer's Apprentice is a very loose remake. It literally takes one segment, the Sorcerer's Apprentice segment from Fantasia. It builds a whole new story around that segment.
I can't comment on it because I haven't seen that one.
Everything else besides the Sorcerer's Apprentice stuff from the original Fantasia is totally different. So there's a debate that can be had about should this movie actually be counted as a Disney live action remake? But I would prefer to talk about more films rather than less of them. So we're going to talk about this one. I've seen Sorcerer's Apprentice before. I think that it's a fun movie, though I think it should be more fun, to be honest. Because it's directed by John Turteltaub, the guy who did National Treasure. Has Nicolas Cage in it as a wizard.
Yeah, I've seen
previews. It feels like it should be more entertaining than it actually is. It falls kind of flat. I think that throughout the runtime, there isn't that much tension, to be honest, because it feels like villains can always just catch up with the heroes. They're always just around the corner. And then you get to the third act and suddenly, we got to save the world now. But I don't think Sorcerer's Apprentice is bad necessarily. There's definitely moments that are fun. There's good performances in that movie. There's visuals that work. But I don't think it's the best live action remake either. Then you have Maleficent from 2014, which is actually not a direct remake of the original Sleeping Beauty. Rather, this is a reimagining, or you could say retelling, that frames Maleficent in a more sympathetic light. It kind of tells the Sleeping Beauty story from Maleficent's perspective. I think that Maleficent 2014 is good, though not great. I think that Angelina Jolie is really good as Maleficent. I think there's visuals here that really work. There's definitely fun action in there. But I also think that the free fairies are honestly very annoying. They just argue and bicker so much that it drives me crazy. So this is the movie that really started Disney's obsession with turning all their villains into anti-heroes, not allowing their villains to just be villains. Because we have to reframe the story to make Cruella Maleficent, a misunderstood anti-hero. I don't know why that's not what I want to see at all. I'm like, come on, Disney. Maleficent is one of the most iconic Disney villains. Let Maleficent be the villain. Don't try to turn her into an anti-hero. What if they make Invincible live action? That's an interesting question, Lego Gambit, because Invincible isn't even a movie. It's a TV show. So that's something different altogether, to be honest. Like, we're talking about movies going from animation to live action. Invincible is this animated superhero show. There's already live action superhero shows. There's quite a good amount of them, actually. You look at the Marvel shows, the DC shows, we already have a lot of live action comic book TV shows. We're not lacking in that area. So I don't know. It just feels like if you did Invincible live action, it's like, oh, here we go again. Yeah, it's another live action comic book show. Most of them are trash, like She-Hulk. Yeah, some of the Disney Plus shows have worked. Some of the MCU Disney Plus shows have not worked. I think that Loki, for example, was actually really good. A lot of people would agree with that. But on the other hand, She-Hulk was not well received at all. Yikes.
No. I saw the reviews for that and I was like, I'm good. I don't.
Yeah,
I don't want to watch that.
I haven't seen that show either because it didn't.
It's a TV show.
Yeah, She-Hulk is. Yeah, it's a TV show.
I think.
Yeah, exactly. It's one of the Marvel Disney Plus shows.
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one. It didn't interest me. Yeah, the finale of Loki was peak. That's very true. Lego Gambit, I totally agree with that. Loki is one of the best Marvel Disney Plus shows. And if you look at something like WandaVision, I think that show has a lot to offer. Unfortunately, the ending not as good. I think that show dropped the ball when it came to answering the questions that are raised. But overall, I think that show is good, though not great.
Yeah.
I think that Daredevil Born Again is enjoyable, though definitely flawed because they are basing that season off a really bad foundation. Yeah, I think first part of Loki as well as the finale were both great, honestly. I think when you look at Cinderella from 2015, which is actually directed by Kenneth Branagh, the guy who's directed Shakespeare films before, he did his own version of Hamlet.
Okay.
I'd say Cinderella 2015. Yeah, I think that Daredevil Born Again should have been better than it was. Lego Gambit. There's moments in that season that work for sure, but you can also very much tell that the people made that show started off by going in the wrong direction, and then they tried to correct things later. It's well documented that these people came in and they proposed these ideas that are just really, really wacky. They were going to turn Daredevil into just a legal court drama. Marvel Studios was like, nope, that's not good. We're firing all you guys and we're starting over again.
Yeah.
So
I can't comment because I haven't seen that one yet.
I mean, the original Daredevil show on Netflix is actually really good.
Really?
I
thought Ben Affleck was Daredevil.
He played Daredevil in this early 2000s Daredevil movie.
That's not what we're talking about?
Is the early 2000s Daredevil movie, and then there's the Daredevil TV show that was originally on Netflix, is now on Disney Plus, and then Daredevil Born Again is the most recent Daredevil season. I would say that Cinderella 2015 is a great example of how to do a live action remake right, because that one finds the right balance of not deviating too far from the original Cinderella, but it does update things in a way that actually makes the story better. And for example, I think it was a smart move to flesh out the prince a lot more. If you actually watch the original Cinderella, there's not much to the prince at all.
None at all.
Pretty forgettable, to be honest.
More
We
about
don't really know anything about his family. By contrast, the 2015 live action movie actually explores what's the relationship between the prince and his father like.
Right.
It also has the prince meet Cinderella before the ball, which means that there's more time for the two of them to actually get to know each other, and thus the relationship, I would say, feels more believable.
Yeah.
You buy into it more because they actually talk before the ball.
Right.
And also, I like how the live action Cinderella actually focuses in more on Cinderella, the prince, the evil stepmother, and the stepsisters. I think that's more important. By contrast, if you watch the original Cinderella, you're like, "Ooh, we're spending a whole bunch of time here on the animals," which isn't really important at all. It's like this is taking time away from the things that are actually more important. Also, I'd say Lego Gambit, the Jungle Book 2016 is one of the best Disney live action remakes, because that one actually is better than the original Jungle Book. I think that the original Jungle Book, 1967, not at all bad. I think it's enjoyable, it's fun, but I think the 2016 film does a great job of making changes that actually improve the story. Like, for example, in live action Jungle Book, Shere Khan actually shows up much earlier in the story.
Right away in the beginning.
If you watch the 1967 Jungle Book, Shere Khan doesn't show up until the third act.
Right.
He's mentioned beforehand, but he doesn't show up in person until the end of the movie. So it's not a whole lot of tension or urgency because the main villain doesn't show up until the third act.
Right.
By contrast, Jungle Book 2016, much earlier on, establishes that Shere Khan is a threat to Mowgli.
Yeah.
He needs to be taken seriously because this guy actually is dangerous.
Right.
And also, I like how Mowgli has more agency in Jungle Book 2016. He makes more choices for himself rather than just reacting to what's going on around him. In the 2016 film, for example, Mowgli actually chooses to leave the wolf pack in order to protect them. Because he doesn't want Shere Khan to go after them. By contrast, in the original Jungle Book, Mowgli does go in order to try to find the man village, but it's not really his choice.
Right.
And you look at the Aladdin movie from 2019, I think that's a great live action remake.
I really enjoyed Prince of Thieves.
That one actually
Aladdin,
is
number 2.
Yeah, that's
The
one
original Disney one.
That's
Whatever.
that's one of the cheap Disney sequels. One of the cheap Disney direct to video sequels.
Okay.
You actually had 2 of those Aladdin sequels that didn't get a theatrical release or just straight to video.
Okay.
I say they're both enjoyable. When it comes to 2019 Aladdin movie directed by Guy Ritchie, I think that the villain Jafar is not as menacing as he is in the original Aladdin. You can certainly say, oh, it's a bummer that you don't have a talking parrot Iago in there.
Right.
But overall,
Gilbert Gottfried.
Who's Gilbert
He's the
Gottfried?
voice of that talking bird.
I see.
I can't remember his name. Yazoo? No.
Iago.
Iago. Yeah, I think so. It's Gilbert Gottfried.
That's the name. Interesting. I think Aladdin is one of those stories that just translates really well to live action. You think about what's in that movie. People doing parkour, sword fighting, going to Cave of Wonders, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Just inherently translates over really well. And I would also say that Will Smith was the right person to play the genie. You're not going to get someone who can replicate what Robin Williams did as the genie in the original Aladdin.
Yeah.
He is a great skilled actor,
Right.
for sure. Well, I think Will Smith can bring charm to that character. He's able to bring a different kind of energy to it. I also like 2019 Aladdin actually adds a bit more to the genie, because in this version of the story, the genie actually is interested in one of Jasmine's handmaidens.
Really?
So it gives him more of his own story alongside serving Aladdin and temporarily Jafar when he takes the lamp away from Aladdin. Also, Guy Ritchie is the right director to bring in. He knows how to make those kind of movies.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to Pete's Dragon 2016, this one's actually very interesting. It's something different. Yes, it is a remake of a movie, the Pete's Dragon from 1977. But the key difference is that 1977 Pete's Dragon is not an animated movie. It's a live action movie with an animated dragon in it.
Yeah.
In 2016, Pete's Dragon is fully live action. And it's pretty much a different story entirely compared to the 1977 movie.
Yeah.
There's not that many similarities other than there being a relationship between a boy and a dragon.
Right.
I think Pete's Dragon 2016 is really, really good. It's one of these wholesome, feel good movies that lacks any cynicism or any jadedness. It's just a feel good, heartwarming movie. It really plays up the majesty, beauty of the dragon.
Yeah.
And it's one of these movies that doesn't have a traditional villain in it. You have a character that's an antagonist, but the movie doesn't at all present him as evil.
Yeah.
It presents him as actually a decent guy that just has some flaws.
Totally
And-
random question.
Yeah.
Do you think they could do a remake of James and the Giant Peach?
I am not sure because James and the Giant Peach is already a live action movie.
Oh, it is.
So keep in mind, James and the Giant Peach is based on a book.
Oh.
So if you do a new version of James and the Giant Peach, honestly, it wouldn't even have to be a remake of the
Yeah.
movie that came out before. No, it can just be a new adaptation of the book. So I think that could work.
I was just being random.
Yeah, I think that could work. Like doing a new version of James and the Giant
Right,
Peach,
right.
especially considering the last one came out a while ago. Yeah, that definitely could be interesting, I would say. Also, when you look at when you look at Beauty and the Beast from 2017, which is a direct remake of the original Beauty and the Beast, I don't think this one works that well. Have you seen
No.
it?
The new one?
Yeah.
I've seen previews for it. I've seen the old one.
I would-
wasn't really interested.
I
when
would
saw the
re-
previews.
I'd recommend watching the original Beauty and the Beast. Keep in mind, the original movie, which is one of the Disney Renaissance classics, is only 86 minutes long.
That's
It's
it?
not a long movie at all, but it's incredibly well regarded. It
Yeah.
got great reviews, and it was the first animated movie to ever be nominated for Best Picture. So it was
Nice.
already fantastic.
Okay.
And that's the big problem you run into when you try to do a live action remake is how do you improve the story? The story's
Right.
already rock solid.
Right.
So when you watch the new movie, unfortunately, it just feels like we're adding stuff that doesn't really make the story better or more compelling. It just
Yeah.
makes the movie longer. It makes the
Yeah.
runtime more bloated.
Yeah.
And it feels like we're answering a bunch of questions that didn't ever need to be answered.
Who played the girl in Beauty and the Beast in the live action one?
Is actually the actress that played Hermione in the Harry Potter movie.
Oh, that's her?
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. Yeah. I think that the new Beauty and the Beast feels the need to go into stuff that was fine before. Like, for example, in the original Beauty and the Beast, you don't know about Belle's mom or the Beast's parents.
Right.
And the new movie feels the need to give us an answer as to who Belle's mom was,
Yeah.
who the Beast's parents were.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, we didn't need to know that.
Yeah.
Also, the original movie, there's definitely things that don't make sense if you stop and think about it. Like, for example, the fact that the witch, the enchantress, decides to curse everyone in the whole castle. If you actually think about that for a second, you're like, wait a minute, why did she curse everybody? There's no
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
at all to do that.
Right.
Because only the prince needed to be punished. Why
Right.
did everyone else in the castle need to be punished? What did they do to deserve
don't
that?
know.
But that doesn't actually matter. The original Beauty and the Beast is still great.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter that we don't understand why it is that the enchantress decided to curse everybody.
No, I really enjoyed
It doesn't matter that if you think about it, you're like, why has everybody forgotten about the castle? And also, if you think about it, you're like, wait a minute, the prince was only 11 years old when he was cursed. Did he really deserve that?
Yeah.
I'm talking about specifically, actually, is during the Be Our Guest song in the original movie, Lumiere specifically says 10 years we've been rusting. And right at the beginning of the movie, you hear that the flower, the enchanted rose, will bloom until his 21st year. So do some basic math. Oh, the prince was 11 when he was cursed? Did he really deserve that? He was just a kid.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things that just doesn't matter because the original Beauty and the Beast is still great. So it's fine that there are things that are unaddressed or things that don't really make sense if you think about them. Unfortunately, the new Beauty and the Beast feels like it needs to fix all these quote unquote problems with Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah.
They're not really problems at all, but
Yeah.
now we have to go through and answer everything.
Yeah, I really enjoyed Beauty and the Beast.
On top of that, unfortunately, while Emma Watson definitely knows how to act, doesn't seem like she knows how to sing that well because there's so much auto tune applied to her voice in 2017 Beauty and the Beast. You go, oh, yikes. And then
Yeah, right.
you have Christopher Robin that came out in 2018, which isn't a direct remake of one of the Winnie the Pooh movies. It's a new story where Christopher Robin grows up, has a family, a wife and kids. Wife and one kid, a daughter, actually.
Yeah.
He forgets about Winnie the Pooh, all these things from his childhood, and then he has to rediscover the world of Winnie the Pooh, rediscover the sense of childhood wonder and innocence that he had forgotten. I think it's one of the best Disney live action remakes. Yeah, I will say that the original Winnie the Pooh movies are only an hour long, and then Christopher Robin is an hour 40 minutes.
Right.
Okay, maybe it's a bit too long. You could have made it a bit shorter because it's about 40 minutes longer than classic Winnie the Pooh movies. So it's like, okay, the concept doesn't necessarily lend itself to a movie of this length, but I think overall it works because the story is interesting, the characters are interesting. I like seeing Christopher Robin go on this journey of rediscovering these things from his childhood and connecting with his family more, making it more clear he actually cares about them.
Right.
So at the beginning of the movie, certainly more distant, more of a businessman, or of a cold working man that puts his family second.
Right.
By the end of the movie, he's made it clear, no, my family is my first priority.
Yeah.
And then you Dumbo 2019, which is actually directed by Tim Burton. It's a direct remake of the original Dumbo, which is a short movie. The original Dumbo from 1941 is only an hour long.
Yeah.
I don't think Dumbo 2019 works that well because, first of all, Tim Burton feels like he's just the McDonald's manager who's putting out a generic corporate product for a big studio without any distinct vision of his own. And when you make Dumbo longer, you run into that problem of you get more of characters, specifically these adults, that are incredibly frustrating. Some of that's already in the original Dumbo, where all these adult humans are making bad decisions.
Yeah.
But the original film's only an hour long. So when you make Dumbo longer, then you get more frustrated with the adults. And on top of that, there's an artificiality to Dumbo 2019. And there's also a pretty glaring lack of self-awareness on Disney's part because part of the new version of Dumbo is Michael Keaton's character buying up all these smaller circuses, claiming he'll take good care of them, but then just using them to prop up his own brand. He's basically acquiring smaller properties to use for his own ends. When you think about that, you go, Disney, that's what you've been doing for a long time now.
Yeah.
Why are you putting out this movie where you're saying that's a bad thing? That's a pretty big self-burn, Disney, because that's exactly what you've been doing for a long time now. Acquiring different studios to prop up your own brand. Then you have Lion King 2019, which I don't think really works. You seen Lion King remake?
I've seen Mufasa.
Have you seen the 2019?
No, just the original Lion King and Lion King 1.5, Lion King 2.
I think the big problem with doing Lion King in live action is that animals in the real world do not show emotion on their faces. They don't emote. They don't have personalities the same way humans do. Think about it this way. If you just go to a zoo and try and figure out what emotion the animals are feeling just by looking at their faces, you're going to have a hard time doing that. Animals in the real world don't have expressive human faces. So a story like The Lion King works really well using classic traditional
Yeah.
animation, which is what you get in the 1994 Lion King movie.
Well, that's what they did in Mufasa. They gave him like human emotions, human like physical. You could see in their face. Like, it was all CGI, but
But here's the problem, though. Mufasa Lion King story is still not a classic traditional animated movie
right,
like
it's not.
1994
No,
Lion
it's
King.
not. No.
I've heard that Disney tried to make things better in Mufasa Lion King. They tried to make the animals a bit more expressive, give them a bit
Yeah.
more personality, to add
That's a
some
good
more,
word,
to add some more
expressive.
energy. But I'd still strongly argue that a story like The Lion King, which only has animals in it, works so much better in animation
Yeah.
than it does in live action. Though actually it's fake live action,
Right.
really animation.
Yep.
If you actually stop and think about it for a moment, Lion King 2019 and the Mufasa Lion King are actually still animated movies,
Yeah.
but because they look so realistic, it feels like it's live action because
Right.
it doesn't look animated,
Right.
though it actually is.
Yeah.
When you watch Lion King 2019, it's like this is a totally hollow, emotionally dead copy of the original movie
Yeah.
that looks so much like it, has so many of the same lines of dialogue, but all the life, charm, and energy is just sucked out
Yeah.
of the movie. So there's no reason to ever watch Lion King 2019. Just watch the original movie from 1994, which is so much better.
Yeah.
Songs like "Be Prepared" as well as "I Just Can't Wait to Be King" that are so fun in the 1994 movie fall totally flat in Lion King 2019 because it's now fake live action. You can't have these energetic songs where you have an animal pyramid or the hyenas being all over the anthill.
Yeah, right.
In the original version, I Just Can't Wait to Be King, you have these expressive animals like Simba and Nala. They're running around. All these other animals are there. Zazu's there. The Rafiki's not in the I Just Can't Wait to Be King song.
Oh yeah.
Not in that song specifically.
Yeah.
Later on, right before the song ends, you have this big animal pyramid.
Yeah.
But then in the 2019 Lion King movie, it's these two animals that can't emote just walking around and singing. So all the energy is sucked out. It's boring. And I haven't actually seen Mufasa Lion King story. I think it's better that this movie actually tells a different story. It's like, okay, I'm glad we're not telling the same story all over again.
It's like
the animals are a bit more expressive.
It's a backstory about Scar and Mufasa.
Yeah, what I've heard is that Scar's turn really not well done because he changes his personality on a dime just based on a slight little infraction. I go, really? I don't buy that at all. Like, Scar would turn into a sociopath and murderer because of his high school crush choosing Mufasa over him. That's basically what happens in the movie.
Yeah.
Like, Scar turns from this guy who wants to be Mufasa's brother to a sociopath because his high school crush chose his best friend over him. Really? I don't buy it.
Yeah.
But I've heard that when you look at Mufasa's story in Mufasa Lion King story, his role in there, it's interesting. Seeing his rise to becoming king, that works really well. So it very much feels to me like Mufasa Lion King story is a mixed bag of a movie. There are things about it that work really well, other things that don't work so well. And then when you look at Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, that came out in 2019, I don't think this one works that well. And I think the core reason why, to be honest, is that Maleficent is not really designed to be a franchise. So you do a sequel to Maleficent, and you run into some problems. When you watch Maleficent, Mistress of Evil, it literally feels like Maleficent is a side character in her own movie. And on top of that, you have the story that's like Game of Thrones for kids, but with a short runtime. I don't think that works really well because with a short runtime, you can't flesh things out all that much. And it makes the movie feel pretty dark for kids. So I don't think that was a really good idea. Then you had Lady and the Tramp. This one also came out in 2019. Didn't even get released to theaters, actually, went straight to Disney Plus.
Really, I didn't know that.
I think Lady and the Tramp 2019 is a great example of a live action remake that's fine. It doesn't make any big mistakes. If I
Right.
watch the movie, I'm entertained. I'm not really bored, but ultimately, it's not really that interesting or memorable. So a lot of people have forgotten about this one.
Yeah.
I don't even remember that there is a Lady and the Tramp remake. So in this case, I don't have too much to say about it because it's not all that interesting.
Yeah.
It's a faithful remake of the story that basically does everything right while making that big of an impact.
Right.
Then when you look at Cruella, this is interesting one
It's not a direct remake of 101 Dalmatians.
yeah, I think Cruella is a movie that definitely has merit to it. A lot of people would say the movie has style to it. I would definitely agree with that. It's an interesting movie that doesn't feel bland or generic.
Right.
It's memorable, unlike Lady and the Tramp.
Right.
There's some good acting in this movie. Actually, I think the cast isn't the problem.
Yeah.
I think there's definitely there's definitely things about this movie that work, but at the same time, a lot of people, including me, would say that Cruella is based on a really flawed foundation.
Yeah.
I am one of those people that just can't buy into the central premise and lead character. What I'm talking about here is that Cruella, the character who's famous for being a sociopath and a puppy killer, is now suddenly a misunderstood punk rock icon. That's not
Right.
something I'm able to buy into.
Yeah.
I'm like, are you kidding me? I want Cruella to be a villain.
Yeah.
You're talking about a character that despicable,
Yeah.
that's totally cool with murdering and skinning cute, innocent puppies.
Right.
I want this character to be a villain, period. I don't
Yeah.
want her to be an anti hero at all. And watching Cruella, I'm thinking, Disney, why are you trying to get me to root for a puppy killer? There's a big disconnect
I mean,
there. I
Where would
never
you
able
like
to
to
get
see it go?
past. Well, as I just said, I want a character like Cruella to be a villain.
Okay.
Simple as that. I don't want her to be sympathetic. I don't want to understand where she's coming from because that
Right.
character is so despicable.
Right.
She's fine of murdering cute, innocent puppies.
Right.
So I don't want to watch a movie that's trying to get me to root for that character.
Makes sense. Makes sense.
Big disconnect there.
Yeah.
The Pinocchio from 2022 is one of the worst live action remakes. Basically, everybody agrees with that. It's a shockingly cynical and soulless movie with no creative or artistic merit and that has no teeth at all. You can very much tell that people making the movie were like, we got to sand off all the rough edges of the original Pinocchio animated movie. So you get this movie that's totally toothless. And what's also very sad is that 2022 Pinocchio was directed by Robert Zemeckis. He's a famous director. He did Back to the Future, Who Framed Roger Rabbit,
Yeah.
Forrest Gump,
Nice.
Romancing the Stone.
Okay.
And yet you watch live action Pinocchio, and it literally just feels like Robert Zemeckis is a McDonald's manager putting out generic corporate product based on IP for a big studio without any distinct vision from him. There's literally a moment in this new Pinocchio where you see that Geppetto has all these clocks. They are of Disney characters.
Yeah.
That's so cynical. It's just Disney shouting for a bullhorn at the audience. Hey, remember our characters? Remember how great they are? It's like, are you kidding me? Look at Mulan that came out in 2020. Honestly, like Cruella, this is a frustrating one because there's definitely merit to this movie. There's action that's fun. There's
Yeah.
definitely something fun about seeing a live action Disney movie that's like a martial arts epic.
Right.
There's visuals in here that work. There's performances that I would say are good. But the big problem is that they totally ruined Mulan's character arc as well as the message of the original movie. If you actually
Yeah.
think about it, the original anime Mulan is very much about the importance of determination, perseverance, and hard work, about how you can achieve great feats if you put the work in. But The new version of Mulan completely undermines that by basically telling the audience, oh, Mulan's a superhero. Yeah, she already has the chi, she has the force, basically.
Mhm.
Yeah, she's already great. She's just hiding how great she is. She doesn't really need to put the work in. She's basically like Rey from the Star Wars sequel trilogy because she
Right.
has the force, essentially.
Right.
I don't think that works at all. You just remove something that was so important to the original Mulan.
Right.
Plus, there's songs that are memorable from the original movie are not in the new version of Mulan, like I'll Make a Man Out of You.
Yeah, I
That
remember that one.
dragon played by Eddie Murphy
Yeah.
isn't in the new Mulan. It's not a movie I
That
really
little dragon was
enjoy
my
all that
favorite.
much. Yeah, he's definitely entertaining in the original Mulan.
Yeah,
that's for
very.
sure. He's fun.
Yeah.
Peter Pan and Wendy came out, and also in 2022. Again, like Lady and the Tramp, this one is fine, but not that memorable or interesting.
Is Hook a remake of,
You're talking about the Hook movie from the 90s.
or is that a different?
That actually is directed by the one directed by Steven Spielberg, as Robin Williams
Yeah.
in it. That's a different version of Peter Pan. It's
Okay.
actually like a what if exploration
Sure.
into Peter Pan, because
Yeah.
similar to Christopher Robin, you see Peter Pan grow up, become an adult, have a family, forget about Neverland, his previous life, and then he has to rediscover all that sense of childhood wonder and innocence. Then you look at Little Mermaid from 2023. This is one of the better Disney live action remakes, actually. It was lambasted because Disney chose to race swap Ariel, which was not a really smart decision. I think it was pretty ill advised on Disney's part because Ariel's famous for being white. Though I don't think it was a good idea for them to do the race swap, but I would say there's people that have taken that too far that aren't willing to give the movie a chance just because of the race swapping, which is unfortunate because I think when you look at to this live action version of Little Mermaid, they captured some of the charm, they captured some of the magic.
Right.
There's definitely issues for sure.
Yeah.
Basically, everybody agrees with that. Everybody agrees that visually, the first half of the movie, stuff underwater doesn't look that good.
No,
You're talking about Ariel's friends that are animals, Flounder, Sebastian. You run into the same exact problem Lion King 2019 ran into. Animals in the real world don't have expressive human faces. So those characters that were so fun in the original Little Mermaid are not as interesting in the live action version of the story because the life has been sucked out of them. So you think about the song Under the Sea that's so vibrant, fun, and colorful in the original Little Mermaid isn't as interesting in the new Little Mermaid. It's not as fun. It's not as energetic as the previous version of the song was. You look at Snow White from 2025. Man, this one would prove to be really controversial. One of the reasons why is because Disney dramatically overspent on this movie for reasons no one will ever understand. For some reason, Disney decided, let's spend $250 million on Snow White. What? That's ridiculous. It makes no sense to spend that much money. Thus, Disney shot themselves in the foot for no good reason, put a really heavy burden on Snow White's shoulders for no good reason. If your movie costs $250 million, it's hard for it to be profitable. Another big problem, just something many people have talked about, is that Rachel Zegler made some very ill-advised comments about the original Snow White. The big problem is that while on a red carpet, she made these comments about the original movie with a very smug, condescending tone. So it's very off-putting. You heard Rachel say, oh, remember the original Snow White that we're remaking because it is really important? Oh, that movie is so dated. It's such a product of time. Take the prince? Screw him. He's a stalker. That's weird. That's weird. It's like somebody needs to take Rachel Zegler aside and teach her how to communicate well. You need to say, hey, Rachel, the way you say these things, the tone of your voice is important. It's not just about what you're saying. It's also about how you're saying it. You need to actually say what you're thinking in a respectful way. You're not communicating your thoughts in a way that's respectful at all.
Right.
It's very off-putting.
Mhm.
I haven't seen the new version of Snow White. I think it's actually also important to say that I saw the original Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs from 1937 for the first time that I can recall within the past few years, like the past 2, 3 years. So I've seen it just one time at this point. It's one of those movies I definitely respect because it's the first theatrically released Disney animated movie. So obviously it's important. Obviously it's iconic. Obviously it's a classic. But same time, it's very clearly a classic from a different era. So it's not really a movie I enjoyed that much. It's not really one that I ever want to see again because it's just a more archaic, primitive animated movie because it's the first one that ever came out. So they were still figuring things out clearly.
Right.
If you watch the original Snow White now, the prince is not memorable in the slightest. We don't know anything about him. He's literally unnamed. And on top of that, the romance between Snow White and the prince, very shallow and superficial in the original movie. There's not much to it at all. The prince just randomly walks up to the princess, starts singing. She runs away and then tells the dwarves about how charming the prince is. And later on, Snow White takes a bite out of the poisoned apple, falls asleep. And the prince, I kid you not, just randomly stumbles across her in the woods with no context. He doesn't know what's going on. He did not see Snow White take a bite out of the poisoned apple.
Yeah.
As the audience, we saw that happen. The prince wasn't around.
Yeah.
And it's not like we see on screen the dwarves telling the prince about what's going on.
Right.
So the prince has no clue why this girl that he's saying to one time is asleep or what's going to wake her up.
Right.
He just decides, hey, here's that girl I sang to one time. I should kiss her. So he does that. She just happens to wake up.
Wow.
Then they ride off into the sunset where they're going to live happily ever after.
Yeah.
And, well, Snow White is not that interesting of a character in the original movie. She's actually a pretty passive and dull character.
Yeah.
So I think if you're going to do a new version of Snow White in 2025, yeah, you do need to change things up. You definitely, I'd say, need to update the story, add more meat to it than what's there in the original movie. But unfortunately, we know that Disney did reshoots for this new version of Snow White, or test screenings that went badly. So when you watch the movie, first of all, many people have talked about how the dwarves are terrifying in Snow White.
Yeah.
The stuff of nightmares.
Yeah.
Don't look the same as actual humans at all.
Right.
Gal Gadot is giving this really flashy, over-the-top performance when no one else is going over the top. It's very weird. And you can also tell that Disney was going in one direction earlier on where they were going to make the movie really different, and then things didn't go that well, so they decided to do reshoots in order to make the movie more like the 1937 Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. So you have this weird movie. You can very much tell this isn't what Disney had in mind at first. They're trying to fix things.
Yeah.
And Lilo and Stitch came out this year.
Great movie.
Yeah, exactly. We talked about this a little bit earlier. But I think that Lilo and Stitch is one of these stories that just naturally translates over to live action very well.
Stitch is just hilarious, I think.
Oh, yeah. Stitch is...
He's like, rah, and crushing these sandcastles with his feet. Like, rah, I'm a monster.
Yeah, Stitch is really funny. Stitch is really funny for
Yeah.
sure. Seeing him crash a wedding, all the other hijinks he gets into is really funny.
Oh, yeah.
Also, if you think about it for a minute, Lilo and Stitch is a classic tried and true formula because it's about a human meeting an alien, forming a relationship with them.
Kind of like
It's
E.T.
using the E.T., Iron Giant, and Bumblebee formula.
Yeah.
Two of those movies, E.T. and Bumblebee, are already live action. So,
Right.
of course, this story just works really well in this new format, in live action.
Right.
Also, think about it, this new version of Snow White only cost $100 million.
That's it.
That's very refreshing considering that Disney decided to spend $250 million on Snow White.
Right.
And they decided to spend $300 million on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny for reasons no one will ever understand.
Yeah.
It's a shockingly ill-advised decision on their part.
Yeah.
You go, Oh wow, Disney only spent $100 million on Lilo and Stitch.
Right.
Yeah, that's the right thing to do. Don't overspend on the movie. Don't try to turn it into something else.
Yeah.
Stay true to the original movie while changing things up for
Yeah.
this new format. And there's also a lot of heart to the story. Lilo and Stitch's bond is very sweet and heartwarming. As we were talking about earlier, I like the note we both do actually that this new version of the story ends on.
Yeah.
It's different than the original movie, but it makes sense. This new movie re-examines what family really means.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end, Nani and Lilo both agree that, we both want to do what we want to do. Nani wants to pursue her own dreams and not just take care of Lilo all the time.
Right.
Rather, do what she wants to do while still not forgetting about Lilo, still making it clear they love each other.
She ends up living next door.
Yeah, through this technology that Jumbo and Pleakley have, specifically Pleakley actually, Lilo and Nani are still able to very much keep in touch with each other.
Yeah.
Still able to spend time together.
Yeah.
They're just not literally living together anymore.
Right.
And more recently, the How to Train Your Dragon live action remake from DreamWorks, not Disney, came out. Me and Mom actually saw this one together in theaters. I also saw it in theaters of some church friends of mine. This is one of the best live action remakes, I'd say.
I can't comment because I haven't seen it.
Yeah, I think that How to Train Your Dragon is one of these stories that translates over to live action really well.
Okay.
It's a story about humans riding on dragons, humans on Viking ships.
Yeah.
There's this little known TV show called Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
That was a joke there. It's not a little known show. It's a very big, famous show.
Yeah.
Game of Thrones and House of Dragon actually both have dragons in them.
Really?
So obviously that kind of thing works in live action.
And who's the main character?
Well, in How to Train Your Dragon, it's Hiccup. And then Stoic is his father.
Okay.
One of the things that works with this story is there's a lot of heart to it because of the relationship between Hiccup and his father's Stoic. And also part of the story is about society being wrong, changing for the better. Burke actually goes from killing dragons to riding them, living with them.
Yeah.
That works really well. Plus, the score for How to Train Your Dragon from John Powell is phenomenal. It's one of the best scores in recent times, I would say, especially when you think about some of the pieces like Romantic Flight, Forbidden Friendship, A Test Drive, Coming Back Around, This Is Burke, all fantastic. And let me tell you, seeing those scenes of Hiccup riding on Toothless or Hiccup and Astrid riding on Toothless on the big screen in live action is just so thrilling.
Really?
It's awesome.
Yeah.
And because I don't remember seeing any of the previous How to Train Your Dragon movies in theaters, it was really cool to get to see a version of How to Train Your Dragon on a big theater screen. Right? That was really impressive.
You just went to see that this last weekend, right?
Yeah, I saw this past Tuesday, actually. Yeah. Now, let me look at a list here and see, are there any live action remakes we did not discuss? We've actually discussed all of them at this point. We can both agree that the quality has varied immensely. Basically, everybody agrees with that. Some of the live action remakes work, others really don't. I think it's unfortunate that Disney's put out so many of them. But there's some Disney animated movies I think would actually work really well in live action. There's some ones that come to mind right away, like Treasure Planet, Hercules, Atlantis, The Lost Empire. Those could translate really well. There's some other Disney animated movies that wouldn't work as well. For example, Disney did their own version of Robin Hood, actually. Robin Hood is one of these stories, has been told in live action, actually multiple times.
I think it was Kevin Costner, right?
He's in one of the versions of Robin Hood, But unfortunately, Disney's version of Robin Hood, the animated movie, is only about animals.
Right.
So it doesn't translate.
Fox, right?
Yeah.
Robin Hood's Fox.
Yeah. Robin Hood in general can work in live action, of course.
Right.
But Disney animated Robin Hood is specifically about animals, so that doesn't translate over to live action that well.
Right.
Although, if you actually think about Tarzan, the Disney animated version came out in 99.
Yeah.
You could do a new live action version of Tarzan. That'd be a pretty safe bet because Tarzan literally already has been done in live action.
Right.
But I do think if you put out a new version of Tarzan now, it's going to probably feel familiar because Disney's already done Jungle Book in live action more than once. Tarzan's already been done in live action.
Yeah.
So what new could you do with it? That's the big problem.
Right.
If you look at DreamWorks, if you look at their movies, actually, one of them is called Prince of Egypt. This is
I've
about-
seen that.
It's about the
I've
Exodus.
seen
It's about the Exodus story.
Yeah.
And here's the thing to remember: the Exodus story has already been told in live action.
Yeah.
The Ten Commandments came out back in the 1950s with
Okay.
Charlton Heston.
Yeah.
So if DreamWorks is looking to do a new live action remake, they could do a live action version of Prince of Egypt.
Right.
That'd be a really safe bet because we
Yeah.
already know this story works well in live action.
Yeah.
I also other DreamWorks movies that wouldn't translate over as well. Kung Fu Panda, that's exclusively about animals.
Right. I don't know how they would do that.
Yeah, exactly. But there are probably some other DreamWorks movies that would work well. But I think that's actually going to wrap things up for this stream. We're both really glad you had to come on today and talk about all these different Disney live
It's
action.
good to hear from you, Lego Gambit.
Yeah, definitely good to hear from you as well, for sure. We both had a really good time today talking about all these different Disney live action movies based on a former animated movie, along with How to Train Your Dragon. 'Cause
Yeah.
that's from a different studio. But we're going to say goodbye at this point.
Hi, guys.
Hi,
Bye.
everyone.